Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I am your host, Dr. Will. And today we will be talking with Krystal Covington, and we'll be talking about living a life of purpose and, making things happen. So, Krystal, for those who are watching today, will you please introduce yourself?
Hi there, I am Krystal Covington, and I like to call myself the connection expert. And I do that because I studied the art of human connection. I went to school for psychology, and I got really, really passionate about understanding what makes people connect to each other emotionally and psychologically, and how do people become influencers in their respective communities. I have a book called The Four Keys to Influence, and I have started a community here in Denver, Colorado called Women of Denver, where I use my expertise to help women become thought leaders and influencers in their fields. And that's really my specialty, is helping people to stand out and be seen in the world.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you again for being the guest on the show. I talk to a lot of teachers all of the time who want to make that next move at conferences. They want to write books. They want to start their own consulting company. And in your book, The Four Keys to Influence, you write about the importance of vision. So how does one begin, cut through all of the noise, comparing themselves to others and define their own vision?
So, Dr. Will, this right here is really one of the biggest traps that people find themselves falling into. It is absolutely natural for us to define ourselves by the things we've seen other people do and follow a path we've seen already from somebody else, because it's obvious. We say, okay, well, this is clearly something that is possible, so I'm just going to do that. And that's what somebody else did, and that's fine. One of the hardest things to do, though, is to have your own authentic vision. And what I found that works really well for me is, just coming from a place of pure honesty. A lot of it comes from experience and trying different things and finding out what works and what doesn't work for you. But then after you have experienced those things, being honest with yourself and saying, okay, does that work for me? Is that something I really want in my life? Is this something that energetically fed me? And so personally, I've gotten caught up in what people said they think I should be doing. They say, okay, well, Krystal, you should go for this VP job because, it would pay well. It uses your skills and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, do I really want to be a VP? Is that really the role I want, or do I want to be here? So it's important to me to kind of really reflect on, what are those actual goals? What does that role mean for me? And what do I really want my life to mean for me? And one tip I like to give people to, have that honest reflection is to actually sit down and journal. And in the workbook that I have, I give people a lot of pages with questions to reflect on, and just asking yourself questions. What do I want my life to look like? What do I want people to say about me? What do I want people to think about me when I walk into a room? Knowing the answers to those questions will help you create an authentic vision that is yours and not somebody else's.
So now this question for me was interesting, because when you look at the ed tech game, a lot of the clout and hoopla and everything else is going on in the East Coast, or you have the West Coast. And I'm sitting here in Mississippi. Texas is huge too, but I'm in Mississippi. I'm trying to bring it up and, lead us, sort of forward and get our name out there. And so once people determine their own vision, how do they begin the work of earning influence? And how does creating a strong value proposition come into play when gaining influence within one's industry or field?
Okay, so the work really, it starts with a strategy, and, knowing where you're trying to go first, of course, starting with that vision. And then I like to start by investigating other people who have been in similar places, and asking them, how did they get there? So whenever you choose to take on a new path, It's important to start there by asking other people who are doing similar things. Don't copy their path, but understand what are the major things that help to drive them to get there. And that's an important thing because everybody's path is different. Everybody's role is going to be different. So the specifics are going to change depending on the person. The thing I like to explain to people is that, it sounds so big. A lot of times when we think of influence, we think of these major players. We think of somebody like a Steve Jobs. We think of, Martin Luther King, people that we see as being really big, and we don't necessarily relate those things to ourselves and see how we could fit into that. But all those people do is they're playing a role. They figured out what role they wanted to be in, which was that vision, and then they positioned themselves within it by just looking like it. You have to be able to look the part. One thing I like to, I heard this somewhere, I didn't make it up myself, but somebody said once that those who look the part get to audition for the role. So just being able to put yourself in the position of being able to be seen as, you don't even have to have been there yet. So if let's say you want to be an expert in the education field, you've decided that you want to be an expert at discussing educational technology. And this is something that this is something that you're aware of, you're in on the trends, you're educated on it. And all you have to start doing is to just continue telling people, I am an expert in the art of educational technology. It doesn't matter if anybody's ever hired you for a speaking gig. It doesn't matter if you've ever been on a stage. It doesn't matter if you have any followers whatsoever. You tell people you're the expert, you walk, act, talk like an expert, and people will believe you and they'll start hiring you as an expert in educational technology. And another thing I want to point out is that a lot of that is in self-development of yourself. So being influential is about looking the part, but you got to feel the part. People want to see that you look like the expectation they have. And when you look like it, when you say I'm an expert at ed tech and you look like you legitimately believe it, people will want to learn more about you. And then they will likely want to bring you on for something that they need or refer you over to somebody who needs an expert in ed tech. So doing the work within yourself to really understand and believe that you deserve it, to believe that you really are that, it takes baby steps. And it takes, little things here and there to try to train yourself to believe that. Because believe me, I actually, I've had moments where I tried to be 2 steps ahead, but emotionally I wasn't there yet in belief in myself. And people didn't believe me because I didn't believe me. So, just doing the work that it takes to believe it in yourself and then telling people who you are. And that's all that it takes to become an influencer and an expert. And you asked about a value proposition. And what I would say about that is that the value proposition is just simply the simple way of explaining what you do. And so in the beginning of this conversation, I said that I help people to be seen. And when I put that together, it was a real reflection throughout my whole life and, how I've helped other people through the marketing work that I've done, through communication, and even friends and family, how I've been an impact to them. And I put it into that one thing. And the reason why people focus on that value proposition is because it is really hard for people to know why if you have like 6 whys, if there's 6 things that you do really well and you talk about all 6 things, people don't really remember, okay, which one does she want to be hired for? She's a speaker. Which 6 things should I call her to speak on? When people know, okay, I know that when Krystal comes, she's going to talk about influence or credibility, something along those lines. I know I can bring her in and that's what she's going to say. And they can trust that, they can rely on that, and they can easily think, okay, I need an influence speaker, I'm going to call in Krystal. So that's really the reason for the value proposition. It's to make it really easy for people to know why to pick you. Because in our brains, too much info just makes us stop. We just don't take action. Simplifying things makes people take action.
I like that. I really do. So let's talk about people not owning one's success. And sometimes, myself included, people feel like imposters or they're not ready to play on that next level. Where does that mindset come from? And how does one celebrate their yes? And I got that from watching your video with Shonda, talking about Shonda Rhimes, and embrace their inner boss.
Okay, I love the boss word. That's my favorite word lately. I talked a bit about it in the last question we just discussed, but just taking those baby steps. I call them small upgrades. So taking small upgrades over time, because that imposter syndrome is real and it will hold you back. So when you make small steps over time, you can help yourself to just incrementally get over it as you go. And there's a lot of people, I don't know if I don't like a lot of airy fairy stuff, but I've been learning a lot about all the abundance thinking and all that kind of stuff. And they always have people start with asking the universe for a cup of coffee. They say, okay, if you can believe that you can get a cup of coffee and you get a cup of coffee, then now you can get to the next step of believing you can get something bigger. And it works the same way with that imposter syndrome. If you say, okay, I'm going to believe in myself that I can get 5 new followers on Twitter based on my influence, the things that I talk about as in my expertise. And then you get those 5 new Twitter followers that are interested in what you're saying, then you can have that little bit more confidence and say, okay, 5 new people think I'm cool because I talk about this. And so just having little tiny goals will help you to really help fight that imposter syndrome. I can say I recently just, dealt with something like that several months ago. I was trying to push myself too fast, and I ended up going through an emotional time because I said, okay, I'm going to be here. And I think that was about 3 steps ahead of where I was at the time. And, I was playing with all of the tools that I had learned in influence, and I got it. I got what I asked for. And then I said, oh my God, I wasn't ready for all of this. I have all these people that are now looking to me. I have these people that are paying attention to me, and I'm not emotionally feeling like I deserve it. I felt like I was faking it. I said, oh my God, I'm a phony. I've got all these people now believing that, I'm at this level and I'm not yet. And I actually got a coach to help me go through some practices to help me to get over the imposter syndrome and really believe in myself. And it helped me to then be able to boss up and be there for the people that were now, relying on me to be their expert, to be their leader. And now I'm, at a place where when people applaud me, I can stand there and I can accept it. When people say, Krystal, you are our leader, and people talk about me, they know my whole life story because they've been following me and listening to me and reading everything that I write. And I can accept it now. I can say, okay, well, this is who I am. I am this expert. I am the boss that I said that I was, several months ago and didn't accept. Now I feel like it is me, and I'm not fighting that. So that is definitely a challenge, even for people like Shonda Rhimes, who I read her book and she didn't feel like that at all. It took her a lot of inner work to do it, and she did she tried to do incremental steps. Some things she just got kind of pushed into. She just had to do it. But, taking those steps and just challenging yourself little by little and then processing it helps you to, fight the imposter and become, feel like you really are that boss.
Now, social media. It is a must for professionals. And when I talk to teachers about social media, a lot of them are not sort of quite there, and they still think, social media is for Justin Bieber watching cats play, or people, backing it up or whatever. They don't necessarily see the value in it. But when you're looking to get on social media, how does one put out a singular voice and make sure that they're not confusing people about who they are and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends in education, and all of them are just baffled by it. They're like, okay, what is this about? This is what my students do. I don't do this. And so I understand the challenge. And another challenge for teachers with social media is just different educators and different levels in social media is being there on social, and their students, the people that they're training, the people that they're leading are all there. So they have to really make sure that everything they do is professional, on point, and on target at all times. So it's definitely very relevant if you're going to use it. I truly, truly believe in the power of social media. And I'm going to give you an example before I tell you the how. So I actually combined with a few ladies this week and we had a big event. We had a party. We called it Luminary Ladies, and every single person that walked up to me at that event, I didn't have to walk up to anybody. Everybody that walked up to me at that event knew my whole life story. Why? Because as soon as they saw that I was a host at that event, and it looked like a really big event, we made it look super important. People started studying me. They followed. They said, okay, well, let me follow this person on Facebook. And everything I posted, they were watching. And I am very strategic with Facebook in how I present myself as an expert there. And so when I got to the event, everybody's walking up and saying, hey, I saw that you recently spoke at blank. Or like, hey, I see that you wrote a book. That's really interesting. Hey, I saw that post you just recently made on your blog. Oh my God, you started an eBay business in college? That's so cool. They knew my whole life story because I had been strategically sharing things throughout the time from when we publicized the event into the day of the event. So people were watching that stuff. So that is extremely valuable because people connect with you through that stuff. They felt like they knew who I was already, and that we had a relationship. I mean, people came up and hugged me. So that is the value of that stuff. Is, you kind of think, okay, well, what is the purpose of it? Why should I even bother? That's why you should bother, because people are there and they're researching you, and when they connect with you, they want to learn more and they want to buy what you got to sell, whatever it is. So one thing I like to refer to Facebook as is Famebook. It's basically your own your celebrity feed. You can become a celebrity in your own community within your own network. So when you're really dealing with social media, you have to think about yourself like a TV or news network. So what does TV do? When you are watching HGTV, or you're going to expect to see home shows, construction, new builds, shows about people finding a new home, all that kind of stuff. That's what you're going to expect to see there. If you're watching the Sci-Fi Channel, what are you going to expect to see? Space, computers, tech stuff, anything like that. You're going to see sci-fi on the Sci-Fi Channel. You have to decide what your channel is so that people know what's going to be on it. If you want to find, if you want to watch, if you're a watcher of HGTV and they start showing the Crocodile Hunter reruns on HGTV, what are you going to say? You're going to say, okay, well, I didn't come here for the Crocodile Hunter, so I'm going to change the channel. And if every time you turn to HGTV, you see, Crocodile Hunter and then some tech show, you're going to say, well, where are the houses? That's what I wanted to watch here. I'm going to stop watching HGTV and find a channel that I can rely on for what I want to hear. People need to know what your channel is, because that trust and that reliability is what will bring them back to you over and over and over again. So this is your personal brand. You choose this and you make sure that everything fits within it. So it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. One thing that people sometimes interpret is that, okay, well, I'm a potato farmer, so does that mean I can only talk about potatoes? No. Your channel can be potato farming, what it means for treating the soil. How do you treat soil? What are some other things? You can have stories about the sun. If you're in ed tech, which is a really cool field, then you would talk. You have a lot of things you can talk about. You can talk about education in general. You can talk about technology in general. You can talk about how those things merge. You can talk about different uses of technology. You can talk about so many different topics. but everything must fit into some sort of mold so that people have that reliability and trust in you, and so that you can be the authority in your field and people know that you are the person to call on for that. And it's very, very simple. And I know that, it's easy to, sometimes that feels like a trap. It feels like, okay, well, I can't be a human being, but you can still be a human being. You can have a little something every now and then that just shows who you are as a person, and people love that. But then you have to have at least 90% be just your constant channel feed, and understanding that you're feeding those people what they wanted to get from you. And it's not a trap. It is not it's not something that you have to be annoyed with or disappointed with, but something that you should be proud of, that people can rely on you as a source for information in that specific channel, that specific brand. And that's valuable for you and for them.
I like that. That was good. That was good. If I had a collection plate, I'd pass it out right now. That was all right. That was all right. So before we go, now I want to jump into the need to specialize. I love reading about business and leadership and career development and branding. And so many people talk about how you need to specialize. And when you're trying to do that and develop a clear, concise voice, what are your thoughts? I mean, should we specialize? And in doing so, how do you do that without pigeonholing yourself into a very narrow niche?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if you're going to like my answer, but you do need to specialize, and you will pigeonhole yourself. And I can tell you, I have gone through it before, where I actually, I had applied, I'm very good at branding myself. And at one point I had branded myself one way. And then, within the company that I was in, I realized, okay, well, this isn't paying as good as this over here, and I can do that over there too. And I said, okay, well, I want to apply. And of course, they gave me the opportunity. I was interviewed by everybody on the team. And every single time I was interviewed, they'd start off by saying, "You're so good at what you do here. Why would you ever want to do this? It's just not as cool. It's just not as good. You're just so good at that." And I realized, okay, this is what happens when you brand yourself so well in something, is that they couldn't even accept. They said, "Well, I'm sure you would do this job well, but you just couldn't possibly be happy when you're just so amazing at this." So that is the negative of being well branded. The positive is that you continue to be seen as that. You are likely going to be able to keep that opportunity forever, as long as it exists and as long as there's still a need for it. You'll be in it. You'll be locked in it, and you'll be locked in it very well, and you'll be paid very well, as far as that that can pay you. I mean, every industry, every role has its cap, depending on where you're at. So what I would say is, choose wisely what you want, and choose based on who you want to be, not based on the money. Because if you're there for a reason that isn't emotionally right for you, you will hate it, and you'll be kind of trapped there. You have to do a whole nother role play again. You have to do the whole process again to go and move your way out of that position. So if you've done a really great job of branding yourself somewhere, you're very specialized. To make that career change, you have to go through a whole new process of building authority in your field, in that new role, looking like that new role, and being consistently visible as a player in that new role. And it takes time, and it takes redirection. So in the process, you're actually taking yourself away from what you had specialized in. So you're going to lose a little bit of ground there in order to gain ground in the other role. So I hope I answered your question with that. But yeah, specialty is definitely the way to go, because you can make more money that way, and you can have a greater impact that way, and be more solidified in your career. But you will be stuck there, and it will take a lot of work to weave your way back out of it. So it's just a process as you grow over time a process of weaving yourself into new roles and solidifying yourself again in that new role every time you change.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I did, I was known as the Google dude and presented 90% of all my presentations and gifted. When I got my first consulting gig, it was Google. When I got my first keynote call, Google was attached to that. And I just got to a point to where I'm like, I'm tired of this Google stuff. I'm tired of talking about Google tools all the time. I'm tired of doing this. I want to branch in something specific, but more broad in terms of leading digital change, one-to-one environments, that type of stuff. And so that's what I have been working on the past year, and getting out of that and into something where it's sort of specific, but maybe broad enough to where if I need to reach back to Google to bring it into maybe a one-to-one environment, I could do that as well.
Yeah, you can still always use those old talents, but people are just not going to know. You're not going to be immediately known for that. So I'm known now as, people all over the place refer to me as a branding and influence expert. But I still now and then do some trainings on business. I have an MBA. I have an MBA, and I have a lot of toolkits under my belt for how to run a successful business and understanding the accounting of all of it and all that. I don't primarily do that, but I still help people in that way sometimes too. So it still provides for me. It's still something that I can support people in, but it's definitely not the main brand. And I don't go really sharing that too much, but definitely, still having the skill. I mean, it's not something I want to go away. So I would never let that Google skill go away or, stop still serving people in that. It just is not primary for you at this moment.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Krystal, for being a guest on the show. People, I told you this year we're going to be doing it big time, and got Krystal to prove it. And be looking for some upcoming shows. I'm going to keep it hush because I'm telling you, I got some guests coming down the pipe. Y'all gonna have to pay me to watch the show. It won't be free anymore. I'm just playing. So again, people, as always, be you. EDU, peace.